Minister Tito Mboweni is likely to ruffle some feathers today with his so-called emergency budget he'll be presenting later this afternoon. Many analysts expect Mboweni to tighten the belts of South Africa's coffers. Let's take a look at the economic fundamentals that are at play ahead of that budget. And for that chat, we're now joined by economist Ndumiso Radebe. Ndumiso, thank you very much for your time this morning, and good morning to you. A big day for South Africa. Many would argue, in fact, that the economy was already on its knees before COVID-19. Let's start then with the debt situation. What can we expect today?
Good morning indeed. Certainly prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the South African economy was already on its knees as we had registered a second technical recession within a period of 4 years. We've also seen some of the key macroeconomic indicators such as the gross fixed capital formation, which is a very important number as it relates to the type of fixed investment that exists in the country, such as people who are opening factories, people who are purchasing capital equipment for construction projects, for manufacturing projects. That number in 2020, the forecast was at 0.2%. Now, of course, because of the lockdown-induced economic contraction, that number is definitely in the negatives. Of course, when we also look at our export situation, we anticipated a growth of around 2.3%. Of course, because of the lockdown-induced economic contraction, that number will also be in the negative. But we also anticipated to have our current account balance at a negative 3.4%. That is anticipated to be around 6%. So there are all areas of the budget that the minister will announce and the adjustments that have to be made as a consequence of movements or allocations that had to be attributed towards healthcare interventions. There certainly will be adjustments there. Even when we look at issues such as the spending programs of government, there was a goal to ensure that debt service costs remain in control, but again, it remains the fastest growing expenditure item given the additional debt requirements, such as the recent announcement by the New Development Bank of a 1 billion rand support for the South African government. Tax proposals as well. There were a number of increases and adjustments that were made there. We should anticipate some movement and some rethinking in that respect. But as well, the more contentious one in the budget framework in relation to shaving off the public sector wage bill. Of course, that one is quite contentious with Labour in South Africa. That will be an announcement that the Labour unions will be looking at quite closely as to what are the implications of this budget on Labour in the public sector.
I also want to speak more about the budget deficit, because I have no doubt that we'll hear the term later on today about a zero-based budget. So please just explain that for us a bit further. That means we started from scratch, essentially, correct?
Indeed. Zero-based budgeting is a concept in fiscal policy that, like you've just quite rightly mentioned, speaks about starting everything at zero, and every single program, agency, government department needs to state their case as to why they need every single rand that they requested from National Treasury. The thinking, I think, from the minister's point of view in respect to a zero-based budgeting approach is simply because of the following reasons. One, our economy is not growing. Therefore, revenues have sharply declined, and we can't anticipate a significant revenue generation that we'd be able to allocate towards resources. Two, there's also a growing debt servicing cost book in South Africa that was already bloated prior to the pandemic. And thirdly, the allocation of resources for the stimulation of growth going forward is also quite limited. So the idea here is to ensure that if we're all hard pressed to ensure that we request money that we do certainly need in various programs of government, then it would limit some of the other factors that tend to take place in respect to the budgeting process. And of course, there are also other implications in terms of over 300 billion rands that tends to go towards wasteful and irregular expenditure. Managing that scenario whereby that continues to become excessive year in, year out. So that kind of approach from a fiscal policy perspective, that is what the minister seeks to achieve. But of course, over the 2019-2020 period, we had expected a budget deficit of 6.3%. Now, certainly because of the increase in debt service costs because of the lending that we're going to get, that number is certainly going to increase. And I look forward to anticipate what Treasury's budget deficit number looks